So we'll just wait for about 30 seconds. Yeah, I had a Veena performance at home, and I
Oh,
called
wow.
a whole bunch of close friends because I've been leaning into music in a big way in the last year. So to do with that,
Fantastic. That sounds wonderful.
I shall tell you more afterwards. But for now, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to today's live with me, your host Karan Malhotra. This is LinkedIn for Leaders, a weekly show that we do every week, every Thursday, to help you have clarity on the strategy and tactics to help build your personal narrative. Today we have Niharika Hariharan. Hey Niharika, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. And I'm going to give you a quick introduction about Niharika. Today, obviously, we're doing our first LinkedIn Top Voice Deconstruct. So, on that, congratulations, officially online over here. We've spoken, and you had the badge for a little while, but it's pretty cool. And we're going to do a breakdown of Niharika's approach to content. But before that, a quick introduction. So, with over 18 years of experience in digital ventures, Niharika has worked with some of the most ambitious and exciting Fortune 500 businesses in the world. She started her career at Nokia Research Center, developing products for patents, and since then has led leading roles at EY Seren, Publicis Sapient, Barclays, and McKinsey and Co. Limited, where she was an associate partner. Today, she is a partner at Sorai, a digital AI and customer experience studio where she is developing the overall business as well as growing the financial services practice, and co-founder and chief product and strategy officer at Design 3, the first and only global edtech platform for design, innovation, and product teams to learn about AI, Web3, and sustainability. Welcome again, Niharika.
Thanks.
Fantastic. So, with that, we are here today to do a deconstruct, right? So, we have a presentation here for everyone, um, and let me do this very quickly. Make sure you tell us if you have a question, if you have any comments, etc. Add them into the chat. But for now, given that these conversations go by very quickly, I'm going to jump straight into this particular one. So, firstly, let's do just an overview of what is the LinkedIn Top Voice program, right? So, Top Voices is an invite-only program, and LinkedIn reviews content shared on the platform to identify new and emerging top voices. Top voices are assessed twice a year. Once you get it, your profile is assessed every 6 months. If you continue to meet the program requirements, the key factors to get the top voice are platform presence, creating consistent content regularly and regularly engaging with the community, quality and originality. This is a key one. High quality contributions with originality and authenticity in voice and style. Subject matter expertise, insights shared on professional topics, which may include news, commentary, analysis, reports, industry events, so on. Safety, trust, and professionalism. These are key tenets of the LinkedIn community guidelines. So, profiles, content, and on platform interactions abiding by LinkedIn's policies, and prominence. Quite often, LinkedIn gives top voice badges to people who have a massive following outside, really world renowned readers, but maybe not as active on LinkedIn. But today, we're obviously talking to someone who is well known in the physical world, but also has been creating some really great content online on LinkedIn. What are some of the perks? You get a free LinkedIn premium business subscription, opportunities to be featured in LinkedIn editorial articles, campaigns, and products, and join exclusive Top Voice events and programming in your region. In fact, Niharika was part of I think, a 3-week LinkedIn Top Voice cohort, and she will share some thoughts from that as well a little later. This is some excerpts from the badge from the email where she got the mail saying you're a top voice. So this badge indicates that you are a leading voice on LinkedIn whose professional insights help our members advance in their careers. The reason I put some of the stuff over here is it's worth paying attention to what is it that they're saying over and over again, right? Uh, Niharika has to post at least two original posts of any format, not including reshares per month. And these posts should be to share knowledge and insights in an area of her choice. So before we jump into this, pause. The key thing that you will see in some of the content breakdown that we do today is that one is that Niharika is not in a hurry to post. She takes the time to create a piece and she posts it when she feels it will add tremendous value. So, the reason I'm pausing and asking some of the questions before jumping into the content itself is for us to also understand what goes into the mindset of an individual, right, of a leader who shares some of these insights, such that you are then seen to be a top voice in your industry. So my first question to you, Niharika, is what do you believe are your gifts?
Oh God, you really started with a loaded question, Karan. um, what do I believe are my gifts?
Yeah.
In this context, in the context of this conversation, I think some of the things that I've kind of identified my gifts or my sort of strengths or the is the fact that I'm a naturally curious-minded person. I like to learn new things. I'm willing to learn from anyone who's willing to teach me something that I do not know or I can get better at. And I think for me, that is a huge gift to further my life, further my career, stay mentally, intellectually active, curious, and inspired. And I think hopefully some of that translates into how I engage with people in the real world as well as on LinkedIn. So I think that would be one.
Amazing.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, I think that's probably the first one. But I think apart from that, it's also not. Uh, I don't think I particularly suffer from imposter syndromes or FOMOs. I don't really have any of those kind of concerns. So if I'm not on the trend bandwagon and not posting the things that everyone is talking about, it doesn't really bother me. I think I'm perfectly fine posting things that I know and I'm comfortable wanting to post. So it's not to do with being dictated by what others are talking about, but mostly about what I want to talk about.
Amazing. One insight over there, and this is something that I've mentioned later, immediately stands out is Niharika has a quiet confidence, and that definitely comes through in some of what she writes. Why do you want to share these gifts?
Uh, I want to share them because I want to be able to. Um, I guess my aspiration for myself is to be able to have a voice in the industry, in my industry that I deeply care about, that I've been part of since as a student and before. I want to be able to have a voice in that, and I think that's probably the primary driver for everything. Whether it is to what is it that's my unique perspective, what is it that I'm learning, what is it that I can learn from others in my network, and I think that is probably the main reason what motivates me to share is to have my voice in the industry.
Amazing. And last question for now, what kind of leadership do you feel is needed in the world today?
Um, I think a lot of the time this is a very this can be a very long discussion, but my kind of controversial or stand on this, if you may, is that leadership is often confused with managers who've been in the industry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of climb the ladder and you become a leader because you've got the right job title. I think the kind of leadership that is needed in the world today is a kind of leadership that wants to learn, can be a student and can be a expert at the same time. People who do not who learn with empathy without ego, and leaders who have a sense of responsibility towards their industry, towards their team, towards the greater community, and are critical thinkers. I think that's what I think is the kind of leadership that's needed today.
Amazing. Some might call them servant leaders, as one expression. Moving on, since we're here to talk about, thank you for sharing those thoughts, Niharika. I think that sets the stage really well for what we're about to go into. Because, like I said, some of these initial questions will essentially help you, the audience, get an insight into the makeup of. It's not just about the numbers, and I think some of you might have briefly seen those already, but that's what we're going to jump into. And personally, when I also work with various leaders, one of the questions I lead with is, what is the one thing that you can talk about every day for the next 1 year, right? Because that can create resonance. If you have one drop in the pond, that creates resonance, right? So it's a clear focus. With that objective look at Niharika's 12-month profile stats. So in the last 1 year, year to date, 16th April last year to 17th April this year, um, she's posted 34 times. That's on average about 3 times a month, 60,000 impressions in total. Her top three post impressions per post was 6.1K, 4.5, 3.5. Top three most engaged engagements, as you see over there, and 3,100 followers total. Now, I think this is just evidence of the fact that it helps for there to be visibility, but it helps significantly more, I think, when you're sharing really deep, insightful content from some of the perspectives, from the kind of voice that you just heard, some of the answers that Niharika talked about, that she's inherently curious, she's not bothered about trends, and she believes in a certain kind of leadership that shows up with more empathy. And these are core things that she believes in, right? And that and a few various other perspectives also show up in the content. So with that, for example, these are the top three posts with actually the most impressions. So first one was things aren't great. This is a perspective on what's happening in the design ecosystem. Second one, also, why are businesses more than ever before closing down the design functions? And the third one was actually drawing a parallel between uh, I think ability to solve problems and painting. So a personal sort of thing over there as well. Now, if you look at the ones with, like I said, this one is with the engagements of the top three impressions. Again, two of them repeat over here in terms of engagements as well. The third one was where Niharika was speaking at a particular event, right? So these are in terms of just numbers that we're looking at. Now, one thing that you know stood out to me was a statement on Niharika's about section, where she says, "I know what good looks like. I understand the cost of opportunities, and I get things done efficiently and effectively." Now, if you look at it objectively, look at just the flow of how the About Us section is written over there. It's very crisp, very concise, um, and some of these are what you see. What is my takeaway? That's she comes across very confident, high performing, high achieving individual, but very credible, future forecast, foresight sort of driven, but also very driven by a core set of values because she cares about the world that she lives in and her role in it. Niharika, please correct me if I've read anything wrong,
Sounds
if you'd
great.
like to add anything
I'll
to this.
believe that.
Fantastic. So I think even in um, just going back to where we started, right? A couple of the questions that she answered, a certain perspective on it, putting that out very clearly, not really being bothered about. Um, you could be creating content that's getting a lot of traction, but the core thing to sort of do over there is focus on, if you're putting out a piece of content, would someone actually pay you for this opinion that you're sharing, or is it something that they can find very easily on ChatGPT? And you will see in some of the content that we quickly go through now, there's a lot of stuff that's very, very original to Niharika herself, right? So now, before we go into that, Niharika did share with me at the outset her approach to how she looks at her content, how she's planned it. So, Niharika, if you want to maybe just talk us through what these 4 steps
Yeah,
are.
sure. So, I mean, in my head, I've kind of got an idea that I'd like to post about 2 to 4 times a month. That's become more ingrained, or because of the LinkedIn top voice rules that Karan had mentioned originally. So my focus is primarily as to what I want to position myself within the industry. LinkedIn is a great platform to do that, and it kind of benefits me because it allows me to connect with like-minded people, or people who I can, again, who kind of complement that network and the positioning. So I have a very clear idea in my head as to what I want to stand for. My career has been fairly less complicated, if I can say that. I've always wanted to be in the creative industry, and I have worked in the creative industry. I studied design, and I've kind of done that my entire life. So I have it was fairly simple task for me to understand. Okay, this is where my expertise is. Within that, I've got a large amount of expertise in building digital products, digital businesses. I know what I'm good at, and that's what I want to be able to talk about. So I can back what I'm putting up. Then on the back of that, I've got a rough structured framework. There are some ways of writing posts that I've kind of learned over time. How do you create hooks? Visual images work better using hashtags. Some of the best practices that I'm sure everyone knows about. And just to be, I'm extremely organized. I have to be for the work and the for in general. So I kind of have a idea of how I want to, what are the 4 or 5 things I'd like to talk about, which are in my head, that are important and I'm working on right now, that I feel like I've been having conversations with people on. So I kind of list down the topics and kind of work out what I've done. So, for example, if I read a really interesting article, that goes on that four post list. If I've had a really good conversation with somebody about something new that's come up, or a really interesting tool or product I've used, that goes on the list. And I have like a short. I either use like notes, or I use an Excel file. Notes on the go Excel file kind of works if I'm sitting down and planning it. And then I pick the topics that kind of link that back to the topic. Sometimes I do a bit of research as well, so it's not all intuitive. There's been a lot of work I've been doing in the financial services, as per my introduction. There are lots of new regulations that have come out. It impacts users, customers, which is sort of in my remit. It impacts the way we design digital products, problem solve. So that's something I've been talking about. I do a bit of research on that as well before I post. So it's backed by evidence. And then it's just about repetition, making that habit of doing 4 posts a month, uh, and then kind of being at the forefront. I think with every social media site, you have to be at the forefront of people's minds. That's kind of how the system is built, I guess. So that's the repetition bit. But yeah, hopefully that kind of helps.
Amazing. I have a quick question on that, Niharika. Let's say you've had a busy month, right, where you've gone for a couple of really interesting events. Let's say there's London Design Week that's happening, and there are a few other events that are happening over there. There's a book launch. There are a couple of reports that have come out. You suddenly have a lot more that you could write about. How do you then sort of figure out how, managing the fact that it's already a busy month and you're running two businesses? How do you figure what you will maybe push down to next month, or you not write about? Do you have like some sort of selection criteria?
Yeah, so I've been through this cycle of putting myself under a lot of pressure to do it and to post it. And over time, I've learned to let go. If it doesn't happen, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Um, if
Okay.
my priorities are things that I think are most going to be something I really want to talk about. So there are 5 things 10 things that have happened this month, and out of that, there are 4 things that I really, really want to share, and I want to talk about, or things that are really valuable that I want others to know about. Then that makes it to the top priority list. The others can come a few. So if I go to a conference which is 3 days long, it's virtually impossible for me to keep posting about it. And if I miss out on not talking
Yeah.
about day 2, I'm not to I don't beat myself up for it. So I prioritize things that are top of mind that I can make time for and do it well, rather than continuously posting. And if it doesn't make it in that week or that month, it's fine. Uh, I do, in summary, I do prioritize things that I feel are going to be really valuable for my network and people I'm connected to, and because we all do similar things in my network. And those are the things that I want to talk about, like the regulations. That's an important topic. We should all know about it if you're working in the financial services. So I'll prioritize that.
Amazing. That's good to know. these 30 minutes go by very quickly. So I'm just going to, we don't have too many more slides, but I'm just going to run through some of the ones that we've got over here. So essentially what I've done is just clustered a few different posts that Niharika has posted over the last year, and I'm going to run through them and maybe come back to this slide. And if Niharika, if you want to point out a couple of things about specific thoughts that you had about that particular post, or why that you wanted to write about that. So for example, Niharika had a particular post about the futurescape, the future landscape, what's sort of happening over there. She actively posts about AI, Web3, etc. So reading reports in depth and then writing, sharing her hot take on that is something that she does quite often. Then she's also sort of focusing on the industry as a whole, right? So what are questions that are being asked in the industry based on what is a new product in the AI space, especially every month, every few weeks, there's one big new announcement, so, and that's top of mind, especially in that kind of industry where there's something constantly new coming. It can also raise this level of anxiety for a lot of people. So therefore, it helps for someone like Niharika to then ask the question, recontextualize that, share a take on that people can consider, at least have something to anchor on, right? And then similarly, Design 3 partners with a lot of industry experts and partners in terms of events and talks that they do. So this one was talking about, this is coming up, and this next one was, this is what actually happened at the event. So just some things that worked really well. And like, for example, she does polls quite often. One of the ones that she does, I think the last one she did was asking if AI should have rights. And I think that was an interesting question. And people, there was a split, right? I mean, there was an equal set of people who said, or most people said no, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah, and that's a separate conversation for sure. Um, and then, of course, by virtue of sharing a take on something that's important to you, and then actively participating in the industry, you get invitations, right? She does get invited to speak on many different platforms. In fact, Design 3 and Niharika said they do talks herself, where she'll invite industry experts and talk about a particular topic that's worth discussing. And then she also talks about what matters to her personally, right? So, for example, this particular post was amongst the most engaged and highest impressions, But she's also talking about what matters to her, designing for the next generation, designing for climate tech. These are um, topics that are personally important to her, right? Even a quote on a given Monday, and also sharing a particular family tradition. So I have a couple of quick questions after that, Niharika. But anything that you'd want to add about some of these slides or any of these posts?
No, I think just to summarize, I read a lot of reports. I think it's people don't have much time to read reports. I value it when people say, yeah, I've read this big report and I've summarized it for you. I'm like, thanks very much. That's very helpful. So I tend to do the same. I've read all of these reports and I'm like, okay, they're really good. Let's put it out there. In the UK, at least, there's a large percentage of designers working in the financial services. Consumer Duty Act is really important for us to understand. I think it will be valuable for everyone in product, in tech, in design. So I'll put something that I think it will help everyone. So it's summarizing things. I feel like a lot of the polls are great because they kind of get people thinking. And I think I enjoy seeing people's responses. So I've kind of been doing more and more of those. And again, reading a lot about AI having rights. So then I shared some resources on the back of that, like podcasts and papers and stuff like that. I do think that that getting people to have those conversations and providing resources is actually really helpful. It helps me, so I assume that will help other people as well.
Fantastic. Um, yeah, like I said, I would definitely invite everyone to spend a little time on Niharika's profile and check out some of the content that she shared over there. We have the last 5 minutes, so rapid fire, Niharika. Any interesting connections, conversations that have come about through the content that you've shared?
Loads. People I've been connected to that for years have kind of like come back. You meet people and you have these random connections in your LinkedIn. You obviously don't speak to the 3,000 plus people regularly, but sometimes they comment or they share something. Opportunities to collaborate, to speak, opportunities for work. So it's been great in that sense, yeah. So just finding whether it's soft connections. Oh, I really like that, or I've done something like that, or hey, can we do something together, or do you want to talk about this topic? So it's been all sorts.
I have one quick follow up to this question, Niharika. Do you have an approach to managing inbound connections? Given you are a well known personality in this space, you're out there quite a bit. So I imagine you get a steady stream of inbound connections or reach out. So do you have a way to manage some of that?
Yeah, I try and stay up to date as much as possible, but I do prioritize based on people I have mutual connections with, people that I recognize in some shape or form. Also very conscious on like the inbound sort of salesy kind of messages as well. So try and like maybe that to be very transparent gets deprioritized in comparison to like more genuine networks. But it does take a bit of time. So again, I don't put pressure on myself to get it all done, and I do it, but I keep an eye on it. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Have you used LinkedIn for lead generation or business
I
development?
have used it for my other business, and I'm going to start using it for my consulting business as well. And it's actually been fantastic. LinkedIn is for the work that we do, whether it's an educate ed tech platform for Design Three, whether it's sharing the white papers we've written or sharing the content that we've got. We've done campaigns which we've run anywhere from 5 days to a month, and we've run them globally from Southeast Asia, South Asia, US, UK, of course, parts of Europe, and we've seen incredible returns on it. It's actually been extremely it served us really well.
Fantastic. So good
Yeah,
ROI over
definitely.
there. Uh, has anything changed post getting the top voice badge?
Yeah, three things. I've become more aware of what I post. I feel like there's a sense of like, uh, not responsibility, but there's a kind of like sense of yeah. You have a sense of responsibility to make sure you're posting the right things, you're backing the right things the right way, you're being more authentic to yourself and what you stand for. So that's changed. The network has grown quite rapidly. It's also in a funny way, it's created a lot more credibility within the industry as well. I've had a few people say, okay, that it opens up more opportunities because you have a top voice badge, which I frankly never expected. But yeah, those are the things that have changed.
Amazing. That's good to know. Um, and this is the question that I asked at the outset. What is the one thing that you think you're going to be focusing on a lot more in the next 12 months?
How do you build fantastic businesses for people and planet? I can talk about that every day, and that's what I'll be focusing on for the next for hopefully for years to come. But how do you build really good businesses from the ground up, especially as somebody who's a creative? I think we are uniquely positioned to think about solutions, develop them, and have a sense of empathy for the greater ecosystem in a very different way. I'd like to believe. So that's what I'd like to talk about.
Amazing. And we're on just about on time. We co-created this particular slide. So you want to lead with the first one, Niharika?
Yeah, I think I realized that I naturally don't do this, and it's kind of served me well. I've seen a lot of people lose their top voice badge because a certain time they started off many years back talking about Web3 and NFTs, and they gained their top voice badges, and when it kind of died out, they moved on to AI, and then they lost it because they couldn't sustain it. So I personally don't think that is necessary. Uh, like I've from my experience from where I've kind of come in, it's more about this is what I'm good at, this is what I like to talk about, this is what I can talk about. These are the topics I want to discuss with my LinkedIn community, and then focus on that rather than what's new and trending. Um, so yeah, so that's the first one.
Yeah, and I think as what you've seen already in Niharika's content, and a similar thing that just by virtue of focusing on one thing, if you're talking about one thing every day for the next 1 year, right, this deep insight, you're really going to the fluff sort of falls by the wayside very very fast because it's actually heavy to carry that fluff, ironically enough. And as you've seen, Niharika spends a lot of time in breaking down reports. She actively gets on stage and shares her perspective on various sort of platforms. She invites other people to share their deep insight as well. And this is again something that I had mentioned at the outset. If you're putting something out there, would someone pay you to hear what you're about to share? Because a lot of the time, especially in this time where you can take an article, summarize it, rehash it and put it out there. But how different is that from just going to the source, which in this case quite often is Claude or ChatGPT or whatever else, and you could get the same insight. Anything to add to that, Niharika?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of chat. You can start recognizing the human mind recognizes patterns. So I can see a lot of posts that you can see people have written using AI platforms like GPT. So you can start telling the difference. I frankly enjoy reading the reports, and if I have something interesting, I read a lot of reports, but I don't always put the ones every single one of them down. So I think it's really just about sharing your voice. Plus, I've used a lot of them, and maybe I haven't used them well enough, but I'm just never happy with the output I get, so I'll end up writing it myself, at least most of it.
Nice. And I think for this next one, but not sharing, don't be afraid to share a contrarian view. You actually did that right at the top of the call where you're talking about your perspective on leaders, right? The kind of leadership that's needed
Right.
here and now. And I don't think that's a contrarian view. I think it's just what's needed here and now. But for some, it might not, they might
Yeah.
not agree.
Yeah, I think it does get more conversations going if you put more controversial things. So and I think sometimes that can be quite healthy. I remember putting up something around designing for mental health during COVID, and I put up a picture of Prince Harry at that time, and he was obviously going through a lot of controversy. And I had to like turn off the comments because there were a lot of people just um, I don't know why I did that. I mean, I'll try and remember if I go back, but it was in context something he had said, and I had put that up. But people were just having a go at him. I had got so many comments that I was not able to like catch up with the number of comments I was getting by people who were just really upset with him, and they were not really interested in the point I was
Okay.
trying to make about mental health and COVID and how do you kind of come back to work at that time. So I think sometimes it facilitates a discussion, sometimes good, sometimes bad. You have to, I think managing that is also a learned skill.
Yeah, totally. And I think the last one is also something that you had shared about resources.
Yeah, resources are always helpful. If you see people put up templates, frameworks, they get reposted a lot. And something I haven't done as much as I'd like to, um, but it's something that I have been thinking about. But it's always useful to give people assets that can help them do their job better.
Amazing. We're a couple of minutes over time. We definitely have some appreciation that's coming in from the
Thanks,
audience,
Dipesh. Thanks.
who really appreciate it. We do have one quick question, Harika, if you don't mind taking this one. So, what is your natural way of writing or creating content? You sit with a blank slate, complete everything in one sitting, or do you capture your thoughts and then convert it into content you want to talk about? You might do it later. You do it one go, or do you like make notes and then come back to
I
it later?
use my a notepad on my phone and it syncs up with your computer, obviously. So I use that to make notes on the go. Usually the notes happen when I'm, walking somewhere or I'm on the train. And then I sit down and I construct everything off that. So the ideas get filtered in into a little notepad. And then there is some time dedicated to put it down and then put it into LinkedIn and then it kind of gets scheduled.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. We're about 4 minutes over time.
That,
Niharika, if someone had to get in touch with you, how they can do that? How can they do
yeah,
that?
you can add me on LinkedIn, send me a message. Love to hear.
Amazing. Thank you very much. I really like I said, we covered a fair bit, and yet it. I have this feeling of it went fast and went slow at the same time. So, so thank you for that great
Yeah, I really
conversation.
enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thanks for everyone. Thanks everyone for joining us. Next week we have um, a conversation with Eliza Esquivel, who's going to be talking about future forecasting for leaders. So building your narrative, keeping an ideal future sort of in mind, right? So that's coming up next week, next Thursday. Thank you for joining us today. This is me, Karan, signing off. See you
Thank
next time.
you. Bye.